So, I know we were wanting to talk about synthetic fragrances today. It's been a really big thing that's happening in our world. I mean, especially where we live, not to mention like the chemical things that are happening outside, but chemical sensitivities and the prevalence and how much it's increased over the last 20 years, probably more. So I kind of wanted to hear what you thought about it and what you had to say about it and just talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's something that because I choose to live, fragrance free, synthetic fragrance free. I know I get a lot of flack about it from other people. Ugh, roll of the eyes. You're so sensitive, right?
Yeah.
But
I
honestly,
get that too.
I'm educated. I'm not just sensitive to it, I'm educated. And you know how hard that is to really convey to other people in a short little interaction, right?
Right.
But yeah, I want to be able to talk about not only where you find synthetic fragrances, what are synthetic fragrances, but also what they do, or potentially can do, and then what's the solution?
Right.
You know what I mean?
So where do chemical fragrances or like fake fragrances come from?
Actually, so obviously they're made in a lab, right? And the idea is, the irony is, it is to actually simulate something in nature that smells good. That's
Why not
the
just
irony.
use the thing from nature that smells good?
Exactly.
In my opinion.
Yeah. So the idea has been also, let's take this great fragrance of like, summer rain and the forest, and put it in products that are masking other yucky scents is really what it's going toward, I think, for some of it. And the idea of that is why. So synthetic fragrances are being made in a lab to replicate these great things, but it's being made with chemicals. So there are ways that, and I want to talk about those in a bit, of how to maybe simulate some of that using nature, just in a more concentrated form that's more natural. But people have gotten so used to synthetic fragrances, and over the course of the past 50 to 100 years, they've gotten stronger and more prevalent. So much so, because really 50 years ago is when they really started coming on the scene. I mean, really hard. Maybe 60, 70 years ago, I'd say. And it was just perfumes, right? This is where we started. Well, I mean, perfumes started back in the early 1900s, but it went from that to, let's make our things and what we're using and our products have that smell.
So it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just like, I'm spraying some perfume, but everything else is clean. Now it's everything has it.
Now it's everything. And it started something a little more subtle to, it's like the further we go, the more the general population accepted these really strong fragrances. And then it was, well, if that smells really strong, it's okay to put it in this and this and this. So, back 70 years ago, it was a couple of things in this amount. Over the course of time, it's maybe this amount in more things than not, unfortunately. So then we're talking about an accumulatory effect.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right.
So one of the biggest things people do not realize, and this is huge, is that if you can smell it, it is in your body. Just like that.
Wow.
So you walk into a candle shop, whatever you're smelling is now in your body. So the first hit is your skin, because that is the largest organ in our body. Our skin.
So you can actually absorb scents through your skin.
You can absorb scents because it's not just the scent.
Know that.
They don't. It's not just the scent, it's chemicals, which we'll talk about in a minute. And those chemicals are airborne. Boop, right to the skin. And it goes into the nose, right? Okay, the whole nasal cavity, sinus cavity is now got a hit. But where does that go? Straight to the lungs.
Right.
The lungs are the biggest thing to take a hit like that. So fast. But that's not where it stops. Unfortunately, we've taken it in our body, it's on our bloodstream, and it'll hit the liver and kidneys. Kidneys get hit so hard with synthetic fragrances, and people have no idea. But do you know how popular or how common things like dialysis is, kidney problems, kidney failure is huge?
Yeah, they're huge, and they're getting worse.
It is. And it's not coming just from synthetic dyes or fragrances. I mean, it's not coming from the smells. It's coming from an accumulation of what we're putting in our body, which is foods, but it's also what goes in the body.
Right.
The first hit, what you smell.
That toxic load, which I mean, we can talk about forever and ever, but like reaching that toxic load limit for your body, I mean, it doesn't take as much as it used to, because now we have it in everything. So people are becoming more sensitive.
And that's the problem, is that more people are becoming extreme sensitive, multiple chemical sensitivity, somewhere in that realm. But honestly, it's not extreme. It's their body is working properly to say, hey, there's something wrong here. That's a toxin.
Yeah.
You don't need it, and we need to get rid of it. So I'm going to signal you to stop, change it, whatever.
Right.
So that is huge that people don't pay attention to.
Well, yeah. And how many people, they're not as sensitive as other people, so maybe they don't realize. But I mean, I know I grew up with like candles that were cinnamon flavored. I can't even, or scented. I can't even, smell a cinnamon candle these days. But all of those things that built up over time, right? And I'm assuming that it like alters your chemical and genetic makeup, right? I mean, so when your parents have that and then you pass it down, right? Because it's turned on certain genetics in your body.
Right. So that's the whole thing of, if you can smell it, it's in your body and it goes into the bloodstream. Because now we're talking about, and the skin, and now we're talking about it happening constantly. So this is how the genes get in there, and now gene expression is changed.
Right.
And this is a problem for the next generation.
Right.
And the next generation. And then the toxic load keeps increasing.
Yeah.
As our bodies are getting more sensitive, because we've hit the limit and our genes are saying no more.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the actual real problem.
And that's only one piece of it. I mean, epigenetics can be affected by, so the study of epigenetics is so interesting, but your genes can be affected by way more than just chemicals.
Absolutely.
Or like by, synthetic fragrances.
Absolutely. Yeah. People don't realize just how much we take in through our skin and, airborne, right? Toxins that are airborne. But if you think about it, like where we live, so we live on the Gulf Coast and we live very close to places where there's a lot of toxic industry, a lot of the oil, petroleum, and chemical plants, right? So how many times have we heard an oops, there's been a breach, and they will tell the entire city, shut your windows, shut your doors, bring the kids inside. There's a problem. Wait 3 hours. Don't go outside. Yeah. Well, why is that? Because the chemicals go right in.
Set up for it. They're like, you turn off your AC and everything.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't know about that because I'm not from this area. When we moved here, I was like, what is that alarm that I hear going off? And I found out, thank God, from like apps and like Facebook, things like that. I was like, oh, these people are telling us that we need to like lock up our doors, keep our pets inside. Like, I was freaked out. I had no idea.
Exactly.
I mean, but thank God they did, because I probably would have had an asthma attack if I walked out there.
Right. So how is it that the government, the powers that be, the people that are controlling, our environment on a larger scale on the city can go, this is really bad. You don't want to smell this in because it is actually airborne. They can give us warnings for that, but then turn right around and be just fine approving it for you to put it on your body every day, in your hair, in your house, and all day long.
Or the minimal amounts as well that get released as like the different plants and things like that too, right? I mean, because there's always a minimal amount that's getting exposed. You can look at
Exactly.
research about cancer in this area and it's way higher.
Exactly. So I don't know
Yeah.
how many people I see here at the co-op come in asking for her, herb help because they're really sick and their body's really sensitive. Oh, it's okay because I live near the plants. And so I'm just going to have those problems. And I'm like, why is that just accepted?
Yeah, right.
But then my question to them is, so now your body's sensitive and why are you choosing to use that detergent and that air
Yeah.
spray and what? Because yes, they're not as strong a load at one time when the plants release something,
Right.
but here's the thing: the plants release at one time all these chemicals. We shut our doors, we lock the thing, put the car on recirc, whatever we need to do, leave the dogs inside. After a few hours, it's gone the next day because nature's actually pretty good at cleaning some of that up. And so, we've got the trees helping us and the plants, filtering it all and it dissipates, right?
Right.
But what about the everyday usage of the smaller amounts?
Right.
Because that builds up.
Especially stuff we put on our skin. I mean, makeup too. They even make fragrance makeup now. Like they literally put fragrances in makeup for kids.
It's horrifying.
It's horrifying too. That's really, really scary. I mean, we had that documentary that we hosted here at the co-op last year. The documentary Stink.
Great documentary. I highly recommend that.
Yeah.
It's a great one.
I learned so much. I mean, it was just interesting that what they will approve and what you can get approved as far as synthetic fragrances go, because it can be deemed as a trade secret.
Right, exactly. And that's why I love documentaries that educate people, or at least open the door so that people go, I never thought of that. Right. But you brought it up. Let's talk about where you find these synthetic fragrances, because some are obvious: perfume, cologne. Okay, so in the documentary Stink, there was a teenage boy and he was so affected by, they said allergic to, affected by Axe body spray, because it is very strong. It is one of the most toxic colognes out there that was on the market,
and it's marketed specifically to teenagers.
And it's super strong. Everybody knows that scent. You say Axe body spray, everyone goes, oh, right, I know that scent immediately.
Right.